I'm pulling people in.
I said I just wanted to make sure.
It's one step at a time.
I just wanted to make sure. I care about what you do with the
Sorry, I'm also dealing with this at the same time, so it's like a lot.
What one?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We're back in. Back in. And let's go ahead and appreciate you guys' patience. Thank you. Thank you. What's going on? All right. Where were we? Oh, yeah. This. Okay. So the whole reason why I'm bringing up H.R. Giger is because whatever we do in our life, all right, whatever we do in our life, we cannot get away from our spirit world, the spirit world. It's always going to come back around again. There's nothing we can do to pull away from it. I'm not saying that we can't make new things that have nothing to do with, someone else's work. But the more that I've been studying this stuff, the more I'm just finding things that apparently aren't as original as I thought. I just found out recently about Batman. Hey, baby, did you know about Batman?
Which one?
The suit they found in it goes back to Aztec culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. All right, all right. Oh, someone's coming out of the room.
Yep. Alright, let me get you a drink.
All right, guys. Hey, take a look at this. Oh, where was it? Google Docs. Here's where we're going to start, guys.
And the world of cryptid over a year ago. And as more projects and things came to mind, I just never got around to it. Well, today I am making good on my word as we're going to cover the complete cryptid iceberg. This iceberg was assembled by someone who works at the International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. Way back whenever I first tried to cover this iceberg, I wanted to do the entire thing in one video, which with my schedule just wasn't feasible. Because sure, while some of the things near the top, like the Wendigo or the Goatman, are things that I'm pretty familiar with and can research easily, the bottom tiers of this iceberg are things that before research, I'd never even heard of. So
Yeah, this stuff gets deep. Here, let me actually move my head down. I will move myself, like, here, I think. Here? Here. Yeah, that's good.
So rather than waiting for the entire Leviathan of this video to get put out at the same time,
No pun intended, Leviathan is another cryptid, and we're going to be talking about that and relating to the Bible as well. RK, hi, hello there.
instead, I'm going to be releasing it in parts, hopefully over the course of December, and then after all of the parts are complete, compile it into one supercut, same as I did with the conspiracy theory iceberg. Now, it's also a well-known fact that I am bad at following up on deadlines I set for myself, so we'll see if I can finish the whole thing by Christmas. But either way, might as well get started now. And also, just a side note, the guy who made this iceberg and myself were communicating via DMs, but I have since lost those DMs, so
Let's actually get him to top. Here we go.
standard A through F ranking system, with S being supreme overall. Just think of S tier as a sort of A+. While the actual iceberg analysis will be based on legends and research, the tier list is just entirely my own stupid opinion on how cool I think each cryptid is. There's also a category at the very bottom, NA, which is just for terms in the iceberg that are non-applicable to what we're talking about. Because some of the stuff in this iceberg isn't even a cryptid. Some of the terms are books or individuals who are very important to the field of cryptozoology, but it'd be weird to be ranking like Mothman and Bigfoot and then be like, oh, well, this book is an A-tier cryptid, whatever that means. So non-cryptids go in NA, everything else is fair game. And for those who are
That's a pretty good list. I like that.
uninitiated as to what a cryptid is, and if you are, I am so sorry for what you're about to experience. But the short definition is that a cryptid is a creature whose existence is widely debated. This
You guys catch that? Cryptid, it just means a creature whose existence is widely debated. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. So this can range between Bigfoot all the way to vampires, werewolves, all the cool stuff. A lot of the stuff out of The Witcher, for example, actually goes back to different types of folklore.
This applies to things you're probably thinking of, like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, but also applies to things that were at one point believed to be extinct, like certain species of fish or primates, which we'll talk about through the series. Basically, any animal or creature that you can think of that exists within the realm of theory is likely a cryptid. And I, for one, am so excited to talk about them today, and hopefully you are too. It's been a while since I've covered an iceberg, especially one this long. And I know that some of you only enjoy videos that are related to real life events, some of you only enjoy content that is related to the realm of fiction, and the world of cryptids kind of combines the two in a perfect way. At least I think so. So hopefully there will be something in this series for everyone, and above all else, hopefully you enjoy. A couple things I want to get out of the way before we get started. For one, The Red Thread, the podcast that I began with Critical and Jackson Clark, the iceberg.
Wow, he does not get started until 10 minutes in. Guys, don't ever let me become that kind of YouTube channel. Holy crap. Windigoon, I love you, but good lord.
Each. And then hopefully after that, I'll be covering 2 tiers of the iceberg per video, which theoretically will round out to 5 episodes over the course of December for the whole series, but I am most likely going to eat my words on that. So I'm leaving this part in the video so that you all can laugh at me when I inevitably fail. But in the meantime, why not have some fun? So let's get into it, starting with Tier 1. Beginning with Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch. The name Sasquatch is derived from the Salish word Sasquatch, meaning wild man. While Sasquatch is the name of the creature within regions like the Pacific Northwest, other renditions of it exist in nearly every corner of the world. While Bigfoot is believed to be connected to several otherwise unrelated legends given his appearance, like for example, stories of tall, hairy men can be seen in everything from the rock apes to the Wendigo and what have you. He is most famous among regions of the Northwest United States. While menacing, his widespread popularity has caused several stories of him to move from that of a barbaric killer to an agent of nature, disturbing those who disrespect the mountains. Shortly after the famed 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film, Skamania County, Washington implemented a statute stating that the poaching of Bigfoot would result in a 5-year prison sentence. Things like this caused Bigfoot to be catapulted into the public eye. And despite his fierce appearance, many now see Bigfoot as a sort of icon for nature itself. Bigfoot, we all know and love him. He's kind of the foundation for any cryptid story, at least in the United States. So of course, I gotta put the guy at A tier. The reason I don't put him at S tier is because he is so popular at this point that there's not really a, like hardline canon for what the creature does or what its motives are. Like to some people, it's this monster that kills anyone that goes in the woods.
Well, funny thing about Bigfoot, they actually try to stay away from people. And they're about as secretive as aliens. There's actually at least one story that I'm aware of. I got to see this live, where at a concert, well, not concert, it was, what do you call those things where people get together?
Seminar?
Thank you, seminar, that's the word. People would get together, it's been a long day, guys, sorry. I was at the seminar in 2019, right? I was at this Bigfoot conference, and according to the UFO researcher, which had passed away in these last couple of years, God rest her soul, she had said that one of her researchers, so I guess like a friend of a friend, had seen Bigfoot creatures walking into a UFO. There have also been stories of people saying that EMF meters have went off around Bigfoot. That's interesting. Why are ghosts and demons give off EMF? Aliens also give off EMF. But why is Bigfoot giving off EMF? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
To others, it's this peaceful guardian of nature. And because of that, stories of Bigfoot are all over the place. Sometimes they can be really cool, sometimes they can be really lame. But Bigfoot laid the groundwork for most of mystery culture as it exists today. So to me, he's a solid A tier. Up next, we have the Loch Ness Monster. Nessie, as she's also known, is believed to inhabit Lake Loch Ness of the Scottish Highlands. While written legends of a sea beast within Loch Ness date back to the first millennia, and sightings date back even further, the description and reputation of the plesiosaur-like Nessie exploded into the public consciousness in 1933 when several locals reported seeing the creature both in and out of water. This series of local stories culminated in 1934 when the famed surgeon's photograph was taken. Despite most legends describing the creature as docile, besides the occasional mention of consuming prey animals, hunting the Loch Ness Monster has become a sort of snipe hunt among the locals. In 1938, men arrived at Loch Ness with makeshift harpoon guns in hope of killing the creature. Sightings and expeditions to find Nessie have continued into the modern age. The 750-foot deep lake is proud of its mascot, a legend that's fueled tourism within Scotland for the past century.
Honestly, I'd say that the Loch Ness Monster might just be a dinosaur, like what we see there in that image.
With connections to legends such as the Kelpie and over 1,000 sightings to date, Nessie is a legend that is certainly here to stay. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Loch Ness Monster and theories that maybe it's a dinosaur that didn't die out in the extinction, maybe it's some kind of giant undocumented amphibian. But regardless, similar to Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster is one of the most popular cryptids of all time. And in my opinion, kind of overrated. There were a series of sightings in
I agree, 100% overrated.
the 1930s. People described it as, again, a long neck thing. There was the famous surgeon's photograph, which, again, got very popular, but years later was revealed to be a definitive hoax. And there's just not really that many, cool stories or, cool things people do with them. People just show up to the lake and they're like, oh, I saw, the dinosaur thing, and everyone's like, that's cool. And that's it. It doesn't go anywhere after that. I think Nessie's kind of cute, but that doesn't really qualify for any of the top tiers. So, middle of the line. Next up, we have Mothman.
RK says, I remember an Oprah episode of one of those from the 90s talking about this besides unsolved mysteries. Yeah. They were really big on that. That was when Oprah was a little bit more relevant, right?
The Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, is a monster as beloved as it is menacing. The legend began in November of 1966, when two young couples spotted a large, black creature with glowing red eyes and wings just outside of a decommissioned military munitions plant known as the TNT area. The creature chased the teens back to city limits.
I actually wrote about this story. And what's really interesting about the story is there was a Silver Bridge collapse that this man is going to be talking about hopefully here very soon. Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and see if he talks about it first, and then I'll bring it up.
Sightings continued across the region until in December of 1967, when the Silver Bridge, a massive roadway connecting West Virginia to Ohio, collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 46 people.
Okay, here we go. Now I brought it up. So the Silver Bridge collapse. My father was born in 1964, so he was about 3 years old at the time. He was sitting in the back seat on the Silver Bridge. My grandfather was driving. My grandmother was riding shotgun. Beside him were his sisters, my aunts. I have one aunt that I have been wanting to get on camera to talk about this, but she has a fear about her identity being stolen. So, out of respect, I cannot have her on. Their car was the last car to come off that bridge. My grandfather looked in the rearview mirror, noticed that there were no cars behind him, and heard this loud crash and splash. And now I'm paraphrasing heavily because I have not heard this story in, I'd say, about a year and a half, 2 years. But they were the last ones to come off that bridge. And I would talk to my grandmother about it, but not only is she struggling with dementia, but even before then, I would call it PTSD. I think it tears her up when she even thinks about it. So I really have no one I can talk about with it that would be willing to come on camera, because my grandmother, even if she did remember it, it would make her too distraught to talk about it because it messed her up.
Legends began to arise that Mothman himself was spotted at the bridge just before it collapsed. As such, the mythos surrounding Mothman shifted from that of a monstrous killer to that of a benevolent harbinger. Likewise, Mothman's public image is mostly that of a wise herald of the natural world. Alright, so for one, to get it out of the way, Mothman is S tier.
I agree. Definitely S tier. Also, something we should say about Mothman. He is not a giant moth, more likely a giant owl-looking creature, which far away, honestly, could resemble a moth in the face. It's not the point. Point is this. My wife had actually bumped into something that was very similar to a Mothman-like creature that proceeded to follow her home. Very scary stuff. In fact, and this brings me to my next point, let me go ahead and say this. This is neat. I believe Mothman to be a type of angel. Possibly a watcher angel or an angel of prophecy. We don't know. Granted, there was a book and a movie that came out called The Mothman Prophecies, or Owlman, although Owlman sounds a lot less cool and less menacing. Less everything. Let's turn that off. Do not disturb. Leave me alone. But no, I believe Mothman to be an angel, an angelic being. And if we actually go... Let me show you guys something. If we go to the fourth kind... Here's why I call him Owlman instead of Mothman. If we go to the fourth kind and we look up the owls... Look at that. Well, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to pull up a TikTok. So this is the owl from the movie The Fourth Kind, which eventually I am going to be talking about the whole idea that I said earlier, for those of you who were not on earlier. I do not believe that life imitates art. I believe that art imitates life. The things that we draw inspiration from and then write down or draw or create is based on something that's actually happened at some point in time. That's my belief. That's my theory. I was talking about the Xenomorph earlier. H.R. Giger, the one who came up with the Xenomorph from the Alien franchise, he got the idea from nightmares. Once again, art imitating life. So, when it comes to stuff like this, I believe that owls do have a connection with aliens. And why do I say that? Well, I believe personally that aliens are angels. It's why when we talk about Mothman, for instance, I do not consider him a cryptid. I consider him an angel. And angels are not cryptids. Angels are, I mean, one could argue that they could be because they would fall under the metaphysical category. But, yeah, potato, potato.
Because if we're doing all of this and we're not putting Mothman at S tier, then what are we doing here? Both among people who are just kind of interested in cryptids or the supernatural, and those who are super interested, both hold Mothman as one of the best. He is defined as a creature that is menacing and potentially harmful, but also maybe here to help us, maybe trying to warn us of danger. And he's a giant bat moth person. Like, that's just really cool. I've been to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I've done all of the Mothman tours, been to the museum, poked around the TNT area. There's even a statue of him in the middle of the town. And yes, of course, my wife did in fact touch his butt.
Healy fallen on in November 1966.
Oh, don't touch the butt. Don't touch the butt. Don't touch the... Oh, thumb in the crack too. That's unfortunate.
Also, one more thing I want to mention. The poster that you can see off to the side whenever I'm recording at the whiteboards or on my live streams, the poster that has Bigfoot, Mothman, Braxy, and an alien on it, this poster came from the Mothman Museum at Point Pleasant, West Virginia. You know, just in case my crippling hyper-interest wasn't apparent enough. Mothman is one of the most beloved cryptids of all time for good reason. Next up, we have the Kraken. The Kraken, or giant squid, is a legend that predates that of near...
Our squids are only getting bigger too, so I would not be surprised if the Kraken was a real thing at one point in time. In fact, that's my belief about a lot of these creatures, is that if they're not around now, they were before.
Nearly any other cryptid. For as long as humanity has traveled the sea, rumors of sea beasts powerful enough to pull down entire ships have persisted. The most popular of these legends is that of the Kraken, a squid-like creature that was originally transcribed around the mid-18th century. In recent years, the Kraken mythos seems to be less fiction and, if anything, exaggeration. While stories of naval vessels being pulled to the depths cannot be confirmed, modern findings like that of the colossal squid give credence to what was otherwise tall tales of superstitious sailors. Given the rapid deterioration of ocean wildlife in the modern age and consistently new discoveries in marine biology...
Yeah, like he had just said, look how big that freaking thing is. That is nuts. Babe, would you argue that giant squids are only getting bigger and bigger?
I would have to look up more information because it might not be that they're getting bigger. It could be that the giant squids that we had deeper in the water
Are starting to
just
rise because
starting
of
to surface.
because of climate change.
Right,
Which,
you heard about the oarfish. Oarfish tend to be deeper in the water.
oh,
They're
dude, the
starting to-
oarfish. That's freaking scary. I didn't want to think about that. I hate what's in the depths of the water. I have such an irrational fear. Or maybe the fear is more rational than irrational, but I have a rational fear of water.
The Kraken
Deep water. I'm not afraid of my bathtub or something.
is less a cryptid and more a chilling reminder of what was, or might still be, out there. The Kraken's an interesting one. Sure, the first time it was written down was around the 1700s, but legends of sea beasts and monsters that destroy ships are as old as sailing has existed. And then as science begins to find things like colossal squids that are still alive, who knows what was roaming the oceans 300 years ago? We know that increased transportation across waterways has caused all form of marine biology to go further underwater to hide from the commotion caused by ships. So what was roaming the top of the waters several hundred years ago? What might still be out there, only a bit deeper down? The Kraken's an interesting one. It's hard to argue that it's entirely fictional or entirely a cryptid, but it serves as a chilling reminder for several unidentified species of creature that we've been wrong before. Next up we have the Yeti, also known as the Abominable Snowman. The Yeti is a Bigfoot synonymous creature hailing from the Himalayan mountain range.
Yeah, it's kind of like bears versus polar bears. That's the only difference between that and Bigfoot.
Tibetan folklore describes different variations of the creature, ranging in color from black to brown to white, and in height from 3 to 15 feet tall. From footprints and stories discovered by the British in 1921 along the foothills of Mount Everest, the term abominable snowman was born, and with it, legends of people being lost to the rage hidden within the fierce snowstorms of the mountains. While some Tibetan cultures view the Yeti as a sort of spiritual guardian, most see him as an agent of death and violence. Sightings of large footprints, tribal relics, and massive figures along the Himalayas keep the legend alive to this day. The Yeti has an intricacy that's probably surprising to a lot of people that just see it as a Bigfoot transported over to Asia. The Tibetans have legends for different kinds of Yetis, those that are violent to people, those that are passive to people. But the majority of people who spend enough time at the foothills of Everest will report finding remains or footprints that are just a little bit out of character. Or you'll hear stories of explorers seeing someone on a far-off mountain range who appeared to be just a bit too tall. The Yeti is in a particularly mysterious part of the world, and with it, holds several mysteries as well. So I'm giving it B tier. Again, this is all just my own opinion, and the only thing that really holds it back for me is because, as an American, it really is just snow Bigfoot. The next term on the iceberg is the thylacine, which, also known as the Tasmanian tiger, was a species native to Tasmania, New Zealand, and Australia. At one point, there existed large populations of them across the continent, but the last known member of the species died in the 1930s. They were a pretty weird creature. They kind of looked like a sort of Wolverine dog thing, but they were marsupial, and they had like the marsupial pouch. They could also open their jaws like really wide, near 90 degrees. The reason that the thylacine's on this iceberg is because it's an example of a weird and unique species that died out in the past century. So while it does give credence to some other cryptid legends, I have to put it at non-applicable because, I mean, it's...
Guys, I'm sorry. My batteries keep dying, so I'm going to have my camera off. These batteries are busted. Like, completely busted. That is really annoying.
We'll figure something out for next week.
Yeah.
It's just a species that is now dead. So sad. Next up, we have the skunk ape. The skunk ape is, in effect, the Bigfoot of the Everglades. The key trait that separates the skunk ape from other Sasquatch-adjacent creatures is the presence of a strong, ghastly odor that emanates from the creature.
Gloria says, I heard Bigfoot and the Yeti were connected to the wise man who lives in the wilderness, probably touched. So, yeah, those two are definitely connected. In fact, I would actually say that they are directly come from the Nephilim. Everything about Bigfoot screams Nephilim. And in fact, I actually want to show you guys this as well, since we're talking about now the third freaking Bigfoot creature here, which I actually didn't even know this one existed. I want to show you guys something. Let's go to Genesis 6. All right, so without boring you guys too much, I'm going to try to get through this, paraphrase if I have to, and not go too long here. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. All right, this here, the sons of God as we know today, and those of you guys who are not familiar with the sons of God, these are angelic beings. It was called a conspiracy theory a long time ago. Not so much anymore. There's more to the Bible than meets the eye. And more to the Bible than preachers are willing to talk about. We go down to verse 4. It says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. I tend to think of these as like Hercules. Really quick example that comes off the top of the dome. So, what's interesting here is, if we actually go to 1st Enoch, chapter 6, nonetheless. Says here, it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heavens, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. Semjaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. So this here, ironically, is also Genesis, not Ge- well, like that of Genesis. Genesis 6 talks about the Nephilim. First Enoch chapter 6 talks about the Nephilim. And I find that to be very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed.
Hence giving it the name skunk ape. This scent often preceding the beast sightings. While stories of man-sized monkeys permeated the region since pre-colonial arrival, the legends of the skunk ape have exploded in the past century. While sharing several similarities to Bigfoot, the
Yes, Gloria. Yes, Gloria. Gilgamesh is one. In fact, oh man, now I got to show you this too. Well, I don't have my I don't have the Septuagint in front of me. Gilgamesh, I'll just tell you. Gilgamesh is Nimrod. Gilgamesh is the king of Babylon. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, he is something of a king, but according to the Bible, he's a giant. The Septuagint calls him a giant. He is a giant. Were all Nephilim male? Asked RK. Yeah, so I don't believe so. I do believe that Nephilim could have been female. The reason I say that is because a lot of the giants we bump into now are closer to about 7 to 8 feet tall, some maybe 9 to 10. They were much bigger than that longer ago. Further back in time, they were bigger than that. So I will say that.
the ape is typically depicted as more docile and smelly. I've always found the skunk ape to be more scary than Bigfoot, and I think the main reason for that is as a kid, I was exposed to the happy-go-lucky, friend of the hiker Bigfoot motif. And the exposure to the skunk ape I got was that one really freaky image of it behind the leaves at night. And I think someone found out later that that picture was actually a picture of a display at a Ripley's Believe It or Not, I'm pretty sure. But nevertheless, 8-year-old me didn't know that. And I did live for a month down in the Florida Everglades, and I think it's just because that's such a hostile region of land. Whereas I see things like the Pacific Northwest, sure, in the winter you can die if you're out there, but for the most part, it's friendly hiking trails and whatnot. And if you try to just go hiking through the middle of the Everglades, you will die to something. So while the skunk ape itself is typically depicted as non-violent, I think it's just the menacing characteristics of the area around him that make him so scary. That kind of by association, he's seen as a menacing creature, even if himself is not. This probably doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense up here. So while I do like the skunk ape and have even been to the Skunk Ape Museum in the Everglades, I've got to put him at B tier because at the end of the day, smelly Bigfoot. Next up, we have...
Yes, that's pretty nuts, though. We have 3 kinds of Bigfoot now, counting Bigfoot himself.
Champy. The monster of Lake Champlain has been described by those native to the land as a great horned serpent. And yeah, go ahead, insert Monument Mythos reference here. Known to the Abenaki as the Gittaskog, sightings of a lake monster in Lake Champlain have been documented in newspapers for the past century. Some of which describing the creature as being nearly 200 feet in length and recount stories of steamboats halting when
That is ugly.
colliding with the beast. At one point, P.T. Barnum offered $50,000 for the hide of the creature, which adjusted for inflation is nearly $1.3 million. Despite differing accounts of Champy's appearance,
Oh, that is freaking cool. I hope that they start doing that more often because then you're going to have a real team on your hands, especially with inflation the way it is in the economy. I would be more than happy to attempt to hunt down a cryptid.
most agree on the head of a snake and massive dimensions. Due to the lack of stories regarding attacks or danger, Champy is often regarded as a docile, kind creature and is even a protected species in both the states of Vermont and New York. Champy is effectively the Loch Ness Monster, but in the United States. A lot of the legends around Champy are explicitly nice or kind, whereas the Loch Ness Monsters tend to be more menacing or at the very least mysterious. Champy is kind of seen as almost like there's just a blue well in the middle of the lake, like this harmless creature that's just really big and wants to be your friend. And that's seen in a lot of the artwork and advertisement related to the legend. And while I think that's cute and all, I've got to give it a D tier. I'm sure there's a lot of people that really like it, but again, it's just take this legend and then move it somewhere else. After that,
Yeah, I do believe their offspring were either or. I believe that the offspring could either be male or female of the Nephilim. I believe that their bloodline continued to dilute, and they continued being more human and less. They would have less and less angel blood in them, essentially. I try not to go too deep into that because it starts getting a little bit nuts. But yes, that would basically be it. They did try to stick together quite similarly to how the Israelites made sure to stay within the Israelite groups. But yes, Nephilim did eventually continue getting around with just regular humans to keep their blood going.
we have the chupacabra. The chupacabra, or goat sucker, is a creature from Latin America that is known for drinking the blood of livestock. Descriptions of the creature range from a hyena-like canine, as reported in most Mexican and Southwest United States stories, to that of a reptilian humanoid as seen in the original Puerto Rican sightings. Consistencies across legends often contain details of red eyes and black quills along the creature's back. Despite its popularity, the chupacabra is a relatively new urban legend, with the first use of the name occurring in the 1990s following a series of livestock killings in Puerto Rico. Several animals were...
By the way, livestock killings are very, very common among UFO sightings and aliens in general. We do not understand the significance of this, of like why they would do this. It's weird, but it happens. So chupacabra, I would put it closer to, what was that image? This thing? This is what I would say a chupacabra would be closer to. A reptilian, big-eyed, bug-eyed kind of thing.
Stories rivals the likes of Bigfoot. Chupacabra is one of the most famous cryptids of all time. But that being said, I've got to throw him at C tier. Because like when the legend began, it was this alien reptilian humanoid that...
I would have put him at B, honestly. I would have put him with the Kraken and the Yeti.
that would feast on the blood of animals. And that was, cool and unique. But then when the legend went from Puerto Rico to like Mexico and Texas, it just became stories of people going, oh, well, it was like a coyote without a lot of hair and it ate a chicken. And so it's like, what if it was just a coyote without
Yeah, that sounds like just an animal, honestly.
a lot of hair? And then most of the stories and sightings around it got pretty generic. Most of the time, it could just be written off as a dog. But I do have to give it some points for popularity. Also, I forgot to mention this, but when I was in the 8th grade, we had a class presentation where we had to study some kind of historic event and talk about all of the stories and legends around it. So the normal people in my class covered things like, the Titanic or World War II, and I did a report on the Chupacabra. So I guess I was always destined to wind up here. Next up, we have the jackalope. The jackrabbit antelope is in many regards the first Americana cryptid. The creature is simply...
What in the hell am I looking at? Have you ever heard of the jackalope?
Is that the rabbit with the antlers?
Yeah.
Okay. There actually is an origin story to that.
What?
Apparently it started because this guy who was supposedly a taxidermist said he found a jackalope. He didn't call it a jackalope at the time, obviously. It was a new thing.
Okay, all right.
And he said, check it out. I had it stuffed and everything. And it later came out that he just kind of put deer antlers on a rabbit.
Wow. We're skipping.
That's what I've heard is the beginning of it.
Okay, let's find out.
I don't know how accurate that is.
Let's find out. This is so stupid. Let's find out. Let's find out.
a jackrabbit with antlers. Early settlers would tell tall tales of horned rabbits seen on the fields of Wyoming. The myth exploded in the 1930s when a man named Douglas Herrick, as a joke, taxidermized a set of deer antlers onto a jackrabbit mount. He sold jackalope mounts to several businesses in the American West, and the legend became a sort of in-joke among the locals. Outsiders were warned to beware the dangerous creature and to guard their legs.
Oh God, it's the Squabbit all over again. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, I was right.
Yeah, you were right. It's the Squabbit. It was an inside joke, and then people on the outside would come in. They would go, "Watch out for the jackalope. We're skipping this one."
And apparently other people eventually started...
You better put that thing all the way down to frickin' D tier.
During lightning strikes or whatnot, that's different. But it became what makes me put it at B tier.
What? Where? Oh, wait. Where'd it go? Where'd he put it? He did not put it in B. He put it in B tier.
What's B tier?
Well, A is the highest, or S is the highest. You have S tier, A tier, B tier.
I mean, is this like things...
He's
that
rating
actually
it.
exist versus things that...
How cool they are. There's nothing cool about the jackalope.
I also just noticed that I left my ceiling light on, which has been reflecting on the board this whole time. You think 3 million subs can't figure out how lights work. Next up, we have the Jersey Devil.
Okay, Jersey Devil's a cool one.
I have heard about that.
The Jersey Devil, also known as the Leeds Devil, is a monster said to stalk the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey. Descriptions vary, but in every variation, the devil is a combination of different animal features. It is often cited as a sort of dragon, with bat-like wings, goat-like hooves, and the head of a horse. While the natives' legends of a flying creature within the Pine Barrens predate colonial legend, the story of the Leeds Devil is far more popular. According to legend, in the 1730s, a woman named Mrs. Leeds discovered that she was pregnant with her 13th child. Understandably, Mother Leeds was upset and cursed the unborn child.
Why would you curse a child for that? She was pregnant with her 13th child and cursed it.
When the child was born, it transformed into the Jersey Devil and flew out of the house, stalking those who stray from the trails of New Jersey ever since.
I would too. It's a horrible mother.
The Jersey Devil's a fascinating one. Unlike a lot of cryptids, it has a definitive origin story, and while the characterization of other cryptids is often kind of ambiguous, the Jersey Devil is expressly evil. It's a creature born from hell that will kill or haunt anyone who gets in its way. It's also part...
That was the mother's 13th reason why. Oh, my stomach.
particularly terrifying, and one of the only cryptids that I can definitively say scared me to death as a child. It's scary, it's cool, and it looks weird, so I'm putting it at A tier. And the last cryptid for tier 1 is the Dogman. The Dogman, also known as the Michigan Dogman, rose to infamy in 1987 when a disc jockey named Steve Cook released a song called The Legend, detailing the story behind the creature. According to the legend, the Dogman was first seen in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. The creature has the body of a man with the head of a dog. While many associate this appearance with the commonly known werewolf, stories of the Dogman imply a less blended, more distinct appearance of a canine's head on a man's body. While stories of attacks are scarce, the haunting appearance is enough to drive many locals to a place of fear. The Dogman's an interesting one. Things like the werewolf have been so overplayed in pop culture that few people still find the idea of
Even though we can't get a decent werewolf video game. Freaking ridiculous.
one scary. But there is something directly uncanny about just a man's form with a dog's head.
Man's form with a dog's head. Oh, I misunderstood that. You ever heard of the Dogman?
No.
It's a man with a dog for a head. That'd be a little scary. Maybe a little bit.
And while that in itself is cool, the Dogman kind of has a shaky beginning, so to speak. Like, a lot of these cryptids and stuff come from local legend or stories or sightings or what have you. But the Dogman began with a disc jockey making a song about him, and then sightings of the creature began. And while I'm not going through this
Oh, well, that's not real then. What else do we got? What else do we got? Josh Gates, something. TV shows, Finding Bigfoot. All right, we're moving on to the Leviathan. Let's see here. Let's start here. All right, guys, check this out. I don't know if you guys ever watched this, but it's a scene from the Vikings. Very, very scary stuff. Also, I have a terrible fear of deep water and storms in deep water. Like out in sea, deep.
Maybe that's why he got sick at the beach last year.
I probably did get sick at the beach last year because of that.
We'll be all right. Thor watches over us.
I wouldn't wish this on frickin' anybody. Oh my gosh.
I see what's happening. Thor's gone fishing again.
No, Owza! It's just a storm, it will pass. Believe me, it will pass.
This, what you're about to see here, is freaking terrifying. I think my soul would leave my body if I saw this out in the middle of the freaking ocean like this. You see that? You just saw its spine.
No! No!
Look at that. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. In their folklore, in their lore in general, I should say, they had their own version of the Leviathan. Leviathan is known to be in just about every single mythos around the world. And they are all metaphysical creatures. They are, I mean, technically it can bleed. I believe so anyway. I think you could hurt it. I wouldn't try. But, yeah. Anyway, and it can bring misfortune. And just like that, her daughter is gone after taking one look at it. Here's the worst part about this right here. So her daughter went overboard. And it's storming out here in the waters. Jormungandr, Jormungandr, did I say that right? Jormungandr is the name of the beast in Norse mythology. Okay, well, anyway, I hope I'm saying that right. Jormungandr hates Thor, and it's storming. So you have Thor, possibly fighting Jormungandr, and you have humans right in the middle with casualties. And what is she to do? What is she to do? Even if she didn't have a newborn baby strapped to her, what could she do? Jump out there and swim and go find her kid? I mean, there's nothing she can do. And that's unfortunate. But if we go... Whoa, what is that? Okay. But if we take a look at... Let's see. Let's look at Leviathan. Did these two explorers accidentally find Leviathan? What's this?
Did two explorers find the Leviathan living at the bottom of the Mariana Trench? In 1960, two men decided to try to get to the bottom of the Mariana Trench in this vessel. Even though scientists were almost positive that they wouldn't find anything at 36,000 feet due to the great pressure, the men carried on with their journey. However, after a 5-hour descent to the bottom, the men were shocked when they started hearing weird sounds of something grinding against their ship. And to their horror, on their monitor they saw a massive shadow with 3 heads. But when they reported this, the team on the surface brushed it off, thinking...
Oh, Leviathan doesn't have 3 heads. Let's see here. I want to find... Oh, here we go. This is what I want to show you guys.
Leviathan. Judaism and Christianity are just a few. The creature known as Leviathan appears in many different stories, and its origins are rooted in far more than just one culture.
Guys, and this is the same exact... We're talking about the same sea serpent that we just saw.
So let's take a look at some of these origins. Before we go any further, today's video...
I respect the hustle. We're going to skip.
Cross content not available...
Nope, we're going to skip.
In your... Peter Binsfeld's classification of demons, Leviathan appeared as one of the 7 princes of hell, the Prince of Envy. Scholars such as Thomas Aquinas described it as a demon responsible for punishing those guilty of envy by swallowing them whole. This led to the idea that Leviathan may mean more than just an enormous sea creature. It was a place where the damned would be sent. Its gaping maw was thought to represent the gates of hell.
Ooh, pause. I want to show you guys something. This is really freaking cool. So let's go to... and the sea gave up... Here we go. Revelation chapter 20 verse 13. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what they had done. Why in the world would death and Hades be compared to the sea, or vice versa? This is why people believe in the marine kingdom right here. Because the dead that it's talking about is not physical dead. They are talking about souls. There are souls in the sea. The sea has a spiritual aspect to it. Very, very interesting.
If we go by the Greek Old Testament and the Book of Revelation, Leviathan is a term when translated that means dragon. Dragons and serpents were not terms that were as defined as they are today. They normally refer to very similar creatures in ancient texts. The Old Testament
Oh, hold on. Let me actually do that. Here we go.
doesn't directly associate Leviathan with the devil, but the Book of Revelation speaks of a mighty battle between God and a seven-headed dragon, which is symbolic of evil and the devil. During this conflict, there were two monsters summoned that sided with the dragon. The first beast came from the abyss, and the second, the earth. Chapter 13 of the Book of Revelation describes the first beast as rising from the sea, hence the association with the Leviathan. In the story where Jonah is swallowed by a whale, there are some biblical scholars who instead believe this could have been the Leviathan.
Possibly, but I will say also that Jonah did not survive that. Jonah actually died in those 3 days, which is also interesting.
It's not until the Book of Job that we see the name Leviathan, a monster of the sea that mankind is helpless to overcome. Sharp teeth and scaled is a fairly ambiguous description, which is why the debate as to what creature may have inspired the Leviathan is still ongoing. I've seen suggestions ranging from an enormous crocodile, a giant whale, a multi-headed sea serpent, or perhaps just one of the many extinct species that used to inhabit our ocean. It's common in Judaism to see Leviathan paired with the behemoth, similar to the beasts we discussed earlier. Leviathan, a monster that inhabits the ocean, and behemoth, a monster found on land. The Book of Enoch isn't biblical canon, but it does describe Leviathan as a
Book of Enoch should be written by every Christian who wants to take their studies to the next level. Because, and this is, and be careful how I say this. First of all, read 1st Enoch. Do not read 2nd or 3rd Enoch. They are not the same level as 1st Enoch, written by different authors completely. Secondly, there are books out there to this day that have sprinkles of inspiration of Christ, inspiration of the Holy Spirit. They are not directly inspired, but they have inspiration in them. 1st Enoch is one of these books.
a female monster that dwells in the depths of the ocean, and the behemoth as its male counterpart found in the desert. These two monsters were separated by God, and when the end comes they shall be slain and served as food to all those deemed as righteous. This is...
Oh, I forgot about that. Behemoth and Leviathan, God's going to slay them, and then they'll be served to those in heaven.
Sounds like an epic meal.
That sounds like a very epic meal.
essentially means when the time comes, God will slay these monsters to save his creations, but only his followers will be allowed to feast. In this account, Leviathan is described as a great fish. The Talmud echoes this idea, however it goes a tad further. Its skin will be flayed and cover the tent where the feast takes place. If one does not consume its flesh, they will be given clothing made from its skin. The remaining skin will be spread across the walls of Jerusalem, where its brightness is said to illuminate the world. Now you would assume in order to cover an entire city, this would have to be one really big fish. One description in the Talmud states it was a creature with horns on its head, a gaping jaw, and a body that is 300 miles long.
Don't trust the Talmud, but you should read it so that you can compare it to something.
Numerous stories in the Midrash describe encounters, and they often involve some...
RK says they took the Apocrypha out for our best interest. Oh, I know. Oh, don't get me started on that. They also got rid of Matthew 7:21. Would you guys like to read Matthew 7:21? It's a very interesting... Whoops. No, not Matthew McConaughey. Go away. Was it Matthew 7:20? Where'd it go? Oh, excuse me. Matthew 17. Huh. I was off by a little bit. King James says, however... No, I don't like doing that. Just give me... No, just... Oh, interesting. Right. I forgot about that. Literally the thing I was wanting to show you guys. The ESV version of the Bible does not have Matthew 17:21. I guess we can look at a version of the KJ. Actually, what does the Darby translation say? Yeah, so very important. But this kind does not go out but by prayer and fasting. Matthew 17:21. This, by the way, is the reason I advocate for the Apocrypha. Because now we have scholars chopping up the Gospels of our Lord Jesus Christ. King James, howbeit this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. Now, I don't talk in Old English, so I don't like reading in Old English, but I do appreciate King James looking out for us. But yeah, so what about the easy to read version? Do we have the easy? Look at that. Look at that. No, it's not. No, it is not. We get a footnote. Some Greek copies add verse 21, but that kind of spirit comes out only with prayer and fasting. Look at that. Here's another one. Mark chapter 16. You guys see this? The earliest manuscripts and some other ancient witnesses do not have verses 9 through 20. Therefore, everything that happened here is now up for debate. You see how dangerous this is? You guys know what some of this says? Jesus said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Great Commission. Every Christian is supposed to do this. And now, new Bibles can't even put it in red because it's not among the earliest manuscripts. Yeah, so to add to your point, RK, oh, yeah. Now Google has our best interest at heart too. It seems that way, right? Yeah. Here's an idea. Don't remove anything from the Bible at all. We've had the Apocrypha in our Bibles for 1,800 years. That is a long time to not mess with the Bible. Just leave it alone.
Someone almost being swallowed. The word Leviathan appears in the Tanakh 6 times. Twice in the book of Job, twice in Psalms, and twice in the book of Isaiah. The description, however, isn't always the same. Isaiah 27 mentions the torturous serpent Leviathan that resides in the sea. The Leviathan is described as a great...
Hold on, my wife just sent me something.
I didn't want to be the only one.
Why would you show me that?
I don't want to be the only one.
Oh my good lord.
fire-breathing...
It's a freaking... I'm pulling up Facebook. You guys are going to look at it with me. You guys are looking at this with me. This is terrifying. What is that?
It's a snake eating a centipede.
Oh, that's all this is?
That's all that is, but it looks like something out of a nightmare.
It kind of looked like a face hugger from Aliens. Okay, This okay. Yeah, I thought that this was just one big creature. Don't scare me like that on stream. Sorry, guys, if I spooked anybody.
I said, you could have looked at it at any time.
I thought you sent me a snakeipede. I thought it was one big creature. This is a cryptid stream.
Monster with impenetrable scales. The Book of Job perhaps
I love you.
gives us the most detailed explanation of its appearance. When Job begins to question his place and belief in God, God describes a fire-breathing terror that lurks in the ocean, a monster that embodies chaos, an untamed beast that mankind could never dream to overcome. The only one who can stop this beast is God himself. So Job and anyone else questioning their place in this hierarchy should acknowledge they have much more to learn. In Mesopotamia,
God said, "Oh, you think you're tiny? I'm going to prove how tiny you are. Let's talk about the thing that can wrap its freaking tail all the way around the world, but I can wrap it all the way around my finger."
Mesopotamian and Babylonian mythology, we see what are considered some of the first accounts of the Leviathan, or creatures that are very similar. The Babylonian creation myth tells of a primordial goddess of the sea known as Tiamat, who mates with Abzu, the god of freshwater. In one variation, Tiamat is the goddess of creation, and this marriage to Abzu slowly begins to create the cosmos as they have children. The second variation is much closer to the Leviathan we saw in Christianity. Tiamat is a monster that embodies chaos, and takes the form of a serpent or dragon. The first generation of deities in this pantheon are born from Tiamat. However, their children plan to overthrow them. Abzu is killed when trying to defend his throne, and so Tiamat assumes the form of a wicked monster and seeks vengeance.
Mesopotamian mythology is really interesting, but sometimes it's just all over the place. Let's see if we can find anything else on... Well, Leviathan actually can. They say that it drives people crazy. So there's that. Nice and interesting. Oh, we looked through all of that. What else do I got for you? Let's go to Midnight Mass Vampire Scene. And I want to...
Pain, 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 yes. And then the fear was drained from his body, drained from his body is all of it. Fear, pain.
Is this it? What am I looking for? I'm looking for the origin of vampires according to this TV show. Come on.
You've witnessed miracle.
Come on.
Lore. In order for a human to transform into a bloodsucker, the monster must feed on you.
Oh yeah. Okay. We'll let her talk about it. Is communion. You are taking part in the body of Satan instead of the body of Christ. The Nephilim were half angel and half human. The Nephilim were cannibals. The Nephilim were drinkers of blood. It is actually why we can go to not drink blood. Not drinking blood is like the first commandment. Let's see. Yeah, what does the Bible say? Here we go. Genesis chapter 9. Let's read Genesis chapter 9 real quick. This is after the flood. After the flood, he says this. By the way, here is the push for capital punishment right here. Why the death penalty tends to still go out. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. Right here, by the way, is like one of the big. This is the biggest proponent to an argument for pro-life as well. Although that is a separate thing. I don't believe in just sitting there giving capital punishment to just anybody who simply takes life. They have to knowingly take the life of a person. So people who do commit abortions, I do not believe that they should be receiving death penalty. It's not what I'm saying. But babies absolutely do bear the face of God just like any other human being. But check this out. God said to Noah and his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, livestock, and every beast of the earth, with you as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is me in the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, this is the rainbow, it's the promise. I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the cloud, or when the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of flesh. All right, so that's God's promise. Let's go down here. Oh, where'd it go? No. I was looking for you. Oh, I skipped it. Whoops. Ah, here. This is where I want it. I give you everything. As I give you the green plants, I give you everything, but you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is the blood. Life is in the blood. And, of course, the argument for capital punishment. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning from every beast I will require it. And from man, from his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. It's that whole deep thing here. But if we go back here to Midnight Mass, this here goes back to the Nephilim. Could a disease be spread among tribes? And is that why the Israelites went down, started hunting down entire tribes of people, destroying the bloodline, being told to destroy the women, the children, the animals? That's a little weird. Unless they had blood of a Nephilim. Now, am I saying they ran around in darkness and was eating? I mean, maybe. We don't know, okay? We don't know. We, honest to God, do not know. But I do have a deep theory. Dr. Judd Burton, by the way, is the one who has the biggest theory here. This is not my original idea, but I do believe that vampires were the first Nephilim. There is a heavy belief in why does sunlight hurt them? Well, in Christ was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. That's Scripture. Death, destruction, sin, they hide in the darkness. Life is light. Which, by the way, you have to die and come back to life. You have to be reborn. The entire process of vampirism is a direct reflection of becoming a Christian. The Googler, thank you. I appreciate the sources there. I'll look into that. Alex Calvo? Those are all my theories. Yes, I do believe that. I believe you mix angel blood with human blood, you absolutely do get not only a Nephilim or That actually means fallen one. You get a vampire. You do get a vampire, and that's how I believe that cryptid came about. I believe cryptids go straight. That type of cryptid goes straight back to the Nephilim or vampires. Oh, my brain is so backwards. Babe, I am tired and my camera sucks. It's okay. It's okay. Does anyone have any questions before we go and close up the stream? And guys, I do apologize for my camera. I'm going to end up getting a new camera, maybe sooner than later. We're going to see. We're going to see. We'll see what we can do. Does anyone have any questions before I take off here? I can tell you that. Hey, let's start here. What is you guys' favorite cryptid? Vampire, werewolf, Loch Ness monster, kraken. Would you say Leviathan's your favorite? Well, the furry's going nuts over the female werewolves. Good lord. It's my favorite right here. I love the werewolf. That's my favorite.
They have an interesting origin story, too.
Oh, do they?
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Super rabies.
Super rabies.
Super rabies. Apparently, there used to be very intense form of rabies that humans could get. And it wouldn't make you grow hair or anything, but it would make you act very animal-like. So you would see these people just transform.
You know what that reminds me of? Of course, I cannot ever remember how to... Oh, there we go. Nebuchadnezzar. Werewolf. Let's take a look at this. I want a verse. King Nebuchadnezzar. This is Daniel chapter 4, verses 25 through 35. King Nebuchadnezzar, you will be forced to go away from people. You will live among the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cattle, and you will become wet with dew. 7 seasons will pass, and then you will learn this lesson. You will learn God Most High rules over human kingdoms and gives them to whoever he wants. There are people who believe... Also, I don't read from the ERV. Can I get a better translation than that? Daniel 4:32. That's a little better. By KJV. I have a little bit of disdain for... I try not to have disdain for the King James Bible at all. I'm just not a fan of King James onlyism. I think that it's so culty. Or at least the roots are. Yeah, they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with beasts of the field. They will make you eat grass like oxen. So there are those who believe that Nebuchadnezzar was some sort of wild beast. Yeah, you're right. Googler, you're right. 100%. It's some dark stuff. Some real dark stuff. But my wife brought up super rabies. So if I don't... find what I'm looking for. I was looking for super rabies.
I don't know.
No, babe, I can't find the super rabies. It's not popping up.
I know it's a thing because I saw it on History Channel.
Well, I'm not finding it here. Super rabies story. I know the effects of rabies are rough. They're really bad. What is the history of rabies?
Rabies has sometimes historically been called hydrophobia owing to that symptom. And the symptoms represent being bitten by a dog, and dogs have been man's best friend for quite some time. But dogs' relationship with rabies might well have come first. The website History of Yesterday explains the friendship between humans and dogs began approximately 33,000 to 40,000 years ago. And before the recording of history began, the dogs came into contact with the terrifying rabies virus. Rabies is one of the oldest diseases to have been recorded in 2000.
Oh, fairies and gnomes? Yeah, no, they're up there too. I do believe that fairy is a type of angelic being.
Oh, okay, so the rabies thing used to be what people thought was the origin.
What is it?
They're still having trouble figuring it out, but it goes all the way back. The werewolf, as we know it, apparently goes all the way back to ancient Greece and Rome.
Well, ancient Greece. Werewolves in ancient Greece. Okay, here. You guys watch this. I actually got to step away for a moment. You guys go ahead and watch this. Hold on. I'm going to turn off my mic by the off.
The geographer and chronicler Pausanias wrote what is sometimes considered to be the first travel guide in the Western world, and he took the landscape and cities of Greece as his subject. In Book 8 of his main work, Description of Greece, Pausanias mentions a cave on Mount Lycaon in Arcadia, where the Titaness Rhea gave birth to Zeus, the chief god of the Olympic pantheon. This is not the only place that he mentions in connection to the mountain, however. A bit later in that same book, he describes an altar dedicated to Zeus Lycaos, a specific version of the deity that shared a connection to wolves. About this, he says the following. On the highest point of the mountain is a mound of earth forming an altar to Zeus Lycaos, and from it most of the Peloponnese can be seen. Before the altar on the east stand two pillars on which there were of old two gilded eagles. On this altar they sacrifice in secret to Lycaon Zeus. I was reluctant to pry into the details of the sacrifice, let them be as they are and were from the beginning. Pausanias' writing serves as one of the main texts which scholars draw upon to establish connections between what others wrote in antiquity and what archaeologists have discovered buried in the soil of Greece. Mount Lycaon and the religious activities associated with the site on the mountain have attracted the attention of modern historians, archaeologists, travelers, and enthusiasts, as well as those living during the Greco-Roman period, in no small part because other texts mention activities which sound very much like a cult based around wolves, or to take it a bit further, a werewolf cult. So what do we know about this supposed werewolf cult in ancient Greece? And, just so we are all on the same page, the three main academic sources I'm drawing upon for this video are Good to Think, Wolves and Wolfmen in the Greco-Roman World, Myth and Ritual in Greek Human Sacrifice, Lycaon, Polycena, and the Case of the Rhodean Criminal, and The Werewolves of Arcadia, the last of which is hot off the press and is the go-to study for this topic. So to investigate this supposed cult, we have to first begin with the story of King Lycaon, arguably the first werewolf of Arcadian myth. There are a few different versions of this myth, and because of that variety, one of the key things that needs to be addressed is the degree to which we can think of one version of a myth or another form of a story from antiquity as being standard or normative when several forms of it exist. To a degree, that's sort of a difficult question to answer. Usually we get around this by having a quote-unquote standard form of this tale, being circulated through mass printing or the internet to the point that many will come to know this one version as the story endorsed by experts. In antiquity, though, this is not necessarily the case, and the different forms of the myth of King Lycaon add or subtract details, like the number of his sons, depending on who is doing the telling. The most well-known form of this story comes from Ovid, who roughly structures it in the following manner. Zeus, or Jupiter as Ovid writes, changed his form from a god to that of a human, and descended to Earth in order to investigate mankind's morality. He then goes to Arcadia, in the Peloponnese, and he finds himself in the vicinity of Mount Lycaon, and he stays for the evening in the house of King Lycaon. Most modern translations do label him as a king, but the original text states that he was a tyrant. Zeus had apparently informed the people living in the area that he was a god, and they worshipped him as such, but Lycaon himself was suspicious, and he didn't quite believe his guest. So, he decided to put Zeus through a test. Typically, when sacrificing cattle to a god, the beast's throat would be cut, and blood drained and collected, and then the meat would be boiled and the organs would be fried. He decided to use a human.
Alright, so, hey guys, I'm back. That was pretty gross what I just heard.
Yeah, and he then fed human meat to Zeus. Zeus figured out what was happening, flew into a rage, and Lycaon managed to escape Zeus while he was destroying his house. And when he got to a field, Ovid tells us that he changed into a wolf. Ovid's description, though, is not so much that of a wolf so much as it is something resembling a beast, half wolf and half man, which is why Lycaon is sometimes considered to be one of the earliest textual accounts of a Greek werewolf. Specifically, Ovid describes the transformation like this. He states that his clothes became hair, his limbs legs. He becomes a wolf yet preserves traces of his former appearance. The same gray hairs, the same violent face, the same eyes glitter. It's the same mask of ferocity. In Ovid's account, Zeus then goes on to punish mankind collectively for this transgression, but at that point, the story ends rather abruptly. The point raised earlier in this video about whether or not we should consider a specific version of a myth as standard comes into play here, because while this form is usually the version of Lycaon you'll find in a textbook or some other work on Greek mythology, it's not actually the earliest. Ovid was writing in the early 1st century.
You okay, babe?
AD, but an earlier attested version actually comes from Pseudo-Apollodorus, writing in the 1st or 2nd century AD, who drew upon a version of the story dating to the late 1st century BC.
Yeah, see, when it comes to the werewolf story, I know very little about it. I just love the whole concept of transforming into something else entirely. If you guys started to go to sleep to that one, I apologize. Blurry Creatures, the podcast is great. Yeah, someone sent me some stuff from Blurry Creatures, and I have been meaning to actually see if I could get in touch with those guys, because I would love to be on their podcast. Of course, I'd like to get my camera figured out first. Oh. Do we have any other cryptid to go over? I had more I wanted to go over. Huh. What is this?
Fairies, gnomes, mermaids.
Huh?
Fairy, gnome, mermaid.
Mermaid. Yeah, mermaid falls in there with, oh, what's actually... Speaking of mermaid and stuff. Half human, half anything. Let's go into... Oh, RK, I would love it. I would love it. I should have reached out to him, actually. First, Enoch chapter... they began to sin again. Why am I forgetting the... Oh, yeah. Here we go. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives... Oh, here we go. They consumed all the acquisitions of men. These are the Nephilim. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. Now, it's important to note that devouring mankind here means blood, flesh, bones, And I don't subscribe to the idea that all Nephilim were giants, like literal giants. I do believe that some were smaller than others. They began to sin against birds, beasts, and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Okay, let's back up here. This right here. They began to sin against birds, beasts, and reptiles and fish. What does sin against mean? Because if they were just sinning against them by eating them, it would just say they ate them. But I mean, those are animals that the men would give as food offerings, but men could no longer sustain them. So sinning against cannot mean that they were eating too many of them. They were not playing hacky sack with them. They were not playing air hockey with them. They were doing something against them. What were they doing? I have reason to believe that, bestiality came from somewhere. I think that the Nephilim were messing with, in some way, screwing around with, these animals. Good old-fashioned gene splicing with the only way you knew how thousands of years ago. And so you have a fish human. You have a reptile human, also known as a politician. You have beasts of all sorts. Birds. By the way, the siren in First Enoch is not a fish girl or a fish woman. It is a bird woman. Half bird, half human.
Like a harpy?
That's exactly right, like a harpy. The sirens of First Enoch are the harpies. So when we look at... I already lost where I was. But yeah, when we look at like mermaids or any of that stuff. Yeah. What is this? Aliens Dark Descent full movie. I don't remember Aliens Dark Descent. Do you guys know about that? For those of you who were not here earlier, I was going over H.R. Giger, the guy who did the dark stuff, had all sorts of nightmares about the xenomorph like creatures, and then he ended up drawing them and kind of started getting a little bit obsessed. Some Fae are angelic. I believe that. I believe that some Fae are angelic 100%, and some can be dangerous. Yeah, genetic modification, 100%. Yes. Oh, it's a video game. And apparently it's good. Can we look at just the trailer? I just want to see the trailer.
All right, Marines. Take a look. But stay sharp. Those creatures, they know we're here.
More are coming!
That looks pretty cool. I should also note here that the original Xenomorph was a lot smarter, a lot more sophisticated than what it ended up just being like just this ultimate predator kind of thing.
Shut that door! Shut that door! Move on! Sentry gun fixed.
That looks okay. It looked cooler from where I saw it. Oh, man. Okay, so the origin of Europe's man-eating monsters. We can look at that for a moment.
Trolls. Big, dumb, and ugly. creatures that have become another staple of modern fantasy. But what if the trolls that we know today differed in the past? What if there was more to them? Today we are indeed diving back into Norse mythology and Scandinavian folklore, as we take a look at the history.
Dude, the Scandinavian folklore is dark. Their folklore is dark.
Of trolls and how they appear today.
Honey!
What are you doing? This video is about trolls, not goblins. You had your chance in the goblin video, and you blew it. Now get back in your cage, you filthy little goblin.
Honey!
No, I'm not giving you any more money. Last time I lent you money, you went straight to the casino.
No, stupids. Honey.
Oh, honey. Goblins and trolls may be extremely annoying. In modern fantasy,
I respect the hustle, but we're not doing that.
See, most of these terms refer to a specific race, and it's fairly easy to identify said race with a brief description of their appearance or behavior. Early 20th century authors such as Robert E. Howard, Tolkien, and many others certainly contributed to this. In the Norse sagas, it's pretty much the reverse. In Old Icelandic, the term troll or trollsleger refers to numerous supernatural beings, such as ghosts and witches. It's not a term that can be easily defined, nor was it meant to be. If it was meant to refer to something scary, then having a level of ambiguity certainly leaves room for the imagination. The easiest comparison I can make today is with the bogey or boogeyman. It has no set appearance, but we know it's supposed to mean something scary. We do know, however, the negative connotation of a troll extends to more than just being something scary. Waking a troll from their slumber was forbidden, just as it was to sit down and have a meal with one. This then led to the idea that trolls may have been witches and heretics who had been excommunicated. Therefore, we can look at a troll as someone living in isolation, someone who society deemed a nuisance with no real value.
Kind of like bad commenters on the internet. Also, greatly appreciate you guys, big time, for sticking with me on this stream.
The first attempts to define trolls in Norse myth then came much later, where the term was used to describe a number of things, from Jotnar and witches to someone who may have just been abnormally big or very ugly. Most of the time they could be found dwelling inside of rocks, mountains and caves by themselves. Interactions with them are almost always negative, and as we mentioned earlier, they were considered someone or something you should probably avoid. Hundreds of years later, in Scandinavian folklore, trolls became much more defined. They were very old and extremely large creatures, with their strength being their biggest asset. Picking a fight with a troll head-on would be ill-advised, as their favourite meal was man-flesh. As seen in many of the early stories, the way to best a troll is to outsmart them, as
So, it does seem like a troll really also goes back to the Nephilim.
they are rather slow and dim-witted.
At least this version of them.
A story that I remember being told as a child is the Norwegian fairy tale Three Billy Goats Gruff. The story itself was first published in 1841, but is still told even to this day. The story is about three billy goats trying to cross a bridge. In the story I was told the goats are brothers, but their relation can vary. The meadow where the goats live has no more grass to eat, so they have to cross the river into the next meadow where the grass is indeed greener. In order to do so, they have to cross a bridge. Under this bridge lives an evil troll. When the youngest brother crosses, he is stopped by the troll.
You would make for a lovely meal.
The youngest goat does not panic. Instead, he outsmarts the troll. Why would you want to eat me? I'm just a baby. My brother behind me is much bigger. You should eat him. And so the troll agrees, allowing the smallest goat to pass safely. When the next brother crosses, the troll stops him and gives him the same threat.
Yes, bigger indeed. You will also make for a lovely meal.
The middle brother copies the youngest. You could eat me right now, but you'd still be hungry. Why not wait for our oldest brother? He'll feed you for days. Once again, the troll agrees to let the goat pass safely. When the eldest brother crosses, he is given the same threat.
Oh yes, you will feed me for days.
This time he does not try to outsmart the troll. The eldest brother is much bigger. He charges towards the troll and knocks him off the bridge with his horns. The troll is then carried away by the current and never seen again. The 3 billy goats and anyone who uses the bridge live happily ever after. I know when we discussed goblins there were tales of them kidnapping children, and this also applies for trolls. The Swedish author Helena Nyblom wrote a fairy tale titled The Changeling. In this story, a princess is snatched from her cradle by a troll who leaves his own child in her place. Both of these children grow up never really being accepted because of how different they are. A troll being raised by humans and a human being raised by trolls may create an issue or two. The human princess...
By the way, there have been nurses out there who were twisted enough to sit there and switch babies at birth. Sam, you've heard about that, haven't you? Oh yeah, it was horrifying.
...is repulsed by the troll way of living, and the troll princess is bored by the human way. Once they come of age and must find a husband, they decide it's time to escape and return home. Both of them pass each other in the forest, not knowing who the other one is. Reuniting with their rightful families, they live happily ever after, finding the acceptance they desired.
Well, here, guys, let's go over one more type of creature. One more cryptid of mine that I find very interesting. And it's in the book of Isaiah. Let's see if we can get it to pull up. Here we go. Isaiah 34:14. We'll start here. The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there and find for herself a place to rest. Okay. First of all, let's just pop that in. That's a satyr. Just want to point that out. Screech owl. Well, the ASV says wild goat, but then also says night monster. And then the AMP says encounter jackals and the hairy goat. They're starting to get a little closer to the satyr. Indeed, Lilith, the night demon, will settle there and find herself a place to rest. But I will say, Lilith, night birds, screech owl. If we go and we pull up Isaiah 34:14 Hebrew, let's look at the original. Beast of the desert, wild goat. Pull up that word. By the way, this is demonology too. This finding the words here, night creature, Lilith. All right, concordance says hairy goat, satyr, or hairy. And the only occurrence is one, so we have nothing to compare it to. There's plenty of goats in the Old Testament, so that is interesting that it showed. Well, look, the hairy goat also will cry. The hairy goat. That's kind of neat. Let's look at the concordance for Lilith. Night monster, screech owl, or the night. So something that hides in the darkness. What does Lilith mean in Hebrew according to... Oh, automatically translate to Lilith. Mesopotamian and Jewish mythology, theorized to be the first wife of Adam, supposedly the primordial she-demon. Now, does she go that deep? Does it go that far back? Not quite as far, but I do believe that there is a type of Lilith creature. And I would even put that with... I would put... let me put it this way. There's not like the Lilith with a capital L. It is more like a Lilith. As in more than one. But it is some sort of... well, it said owl. Which is interesting, right? Because, I mean... What else did we have here? What was it? Fourth kind owl. That is interesting. She is in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Yeah, Gloria, you're right. She is. And that's really where she came from. We shouldn't be surprised. Yeah, absolutely. So when we're looking at this here, oh, there's a Lilith and Ezekiel. Must have missed it. Oh, looks like it's only in the revised version. Let's see here. Say Gilgamesh had to remove her from a tree. Jonathan, you should be in bed, buddy.
What is it?
I don't know where you're from.
Let's see.
You can use the TV if she's asleep.
Mythic Hebrew references date as far back as 2000 BCE, references to Lilith in the Dead Sea Scrolls and in the Babylonian Epic of Gilgamesh identify her as an evil spirit and a night demon that harmed male children. What is the oldest reference? Yeah, Book of Isaiah. That's what I thought so. That's interesting. Yeah, she's thought to be mentioned. So I come from the side that says there's more than one. Let's see here. What was oh, I was gonna type something. I done forgot it. Oh, no I didn't. Druid. In German folklore, a druid is a kind of malevolent nocturnal spirit associated with nightmares, prevalent especially in southern Germany. Druiden were said to participate in the wild hunt and were considered a particular class of demon. Watch this. We pull up a druid's foot. There is belief in German folklore that the sign of the pentagram is a druid's foot or a druidenfuss.
What? I'm surprised you didn't go over Jin.
Oh, Jen?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm trying to stick to cryptids, and you can't kill a Gen. Cryptids, if they can bleed, they can die. They kind of are in that in-between point where they can phase in and out of our world. At least a handful of them can. Yeah, really, we're talking Germany here. But, yeah, in Germany, they have the pentagram, and it's known as the Drudenfuss. But I can also show you, if we go to YouTube,
Nice looking group. Hey, listen, at least it's warm in here. Look at that. Yeah, what about it? It's a 5-pointed star. Well, maybe the owners are from Texas.
Isn't that interesting? Look at that. That used to be known as a sign of protection. It was a sigil of protection. It was not a sigil of death or I'm going to kill you kind of thing. It was a sigil of protection. This, in their area, was to ward off the werewolf, which is not... this actually goes back much further. Let's pull up the pentagram in Wolfman. Was it here? I thought I remembered a necklace. Or not. Okay, don't show me. Wolfman, 1941. Sorry, guys, I'm starting to get really tired. Here we go. Well, if I could type right. I guess that was it. I could have sworn it was in the form of a... I guess it was just in the form of a star and it was written on his hand. Yeah, the Wolfman pentagram. Yeah, it's supposed to be a sign of protection. That was the whole reason why I was showing you that. It's believed that the Druid's Foot or the Drudenfuss yeah, look at this. German folklore, a Druid or Druden is a kind of malevolent nocturnal spirit which would fall into the elf or hag associated with nightmares. Drudenfuss is another name for mistletoe. It basically, this here is actually supposed to be a sign of protection, like a sigil. Ooh, that reminds me. I want to show you guys this too before I log off here. Let's see here. Seal of Solomon. Yeah, silver is another. Yeah, that is another ward. Is silver. According to Jewish Encyclopedia, Solomon possessed a seal ring in which the name of God was engraved on it, by means of which he controlled demons. It was engraved the most great name of God, which was given to Solomon from heaven. Now, of course, we're starting to bend into... When you start getting into, like, the most great name of God, you're like, it starts getting into Islamic territory. Because the most great name would be Allah. And that's where Judaism starts to kind of cross in this really weird way with Islam. And they only touches ground briefly together. I'm not saying that Allah is Yahweh. They are not the same thing. Allah is actually Satan. Solomon stuff is pretty late Jewish. But if I'm looking for Josephus, and I'm not seeing it. Let's see here. Josephus. Magic rings. Jonathan, buddy, you have got to get to bed, buddy.
I need the bathroom.
Antiquities 8. Here we go. Let's go here then. You gonna let me see it? Yeah, but this is basically how it works. You continue just finding sources upon sources upon sources before you know it. You have like 10 tabs open. Here's the reason why I take the Solomon stuff. I take the Solomon stuff pretty serious. Here's why. I'm looking for here. Kabbalah and Freemasonry are pretty tied well together. They're tied well together. You start crossing over and over again. Nope, I'm just trying to read. When you're getting to the Solomon stuff, Kabbalah, if the Freemasons are taking it pretty serious, and I wish I could actually show you Grand Lodge of British Columbia was what I was actually looking for. Grand Lodge, yeah, here we go. This is what I was looking for. And that took me a while to find. Sorry about that, guys. Rooted in the ancient Egyptian mysteries, 3 different versions of basically the same teachings can be identified by 3 different spellings. And here are the 3. The Kabbalah is an essentially Jewish mystical or esoteric school, although the Christian church fathers of the first century were Kabbalists, which is not true. Mystic or Gnostic elements within the church largely disappeared within the first 3 centuries. Those would be known as the Gnostics. Not real Christians, only to reappear as a Christian Kabbalah during the Renaissance. A third, often hidden stream of mystic Western philosophy absorbed many Egyptian, Jewish, and Christian mystical elements and termed them with this spelling of Kabbalah. I read about this guy. His name is MacGregor Mathers. Him and Aleister Crowley were best friends. He was also a part of the Golden Dawn, in which Aleister Crowley was also a part of. To give you guys an idea on how serious that is, he would be like Joe Rogan, and Aleister Crowley would be more like Alex Jones. I'm not saying one is significantly dumber than the other. I'm just saying one was more like a little bit out there compared to the other one. Mathers was a lot more reserved. Aleister, well, you guys probably know Aleister. Order of the Golden Dawn. Yeah, I mean, now you're getting into some crazy crap here. It goes off the rails. I don't really study the Golden Dawn. Yeah, it says Crowley had no influence on Freemasonry. That's because Crowley had to be initiated as a Freemason before he could be a part of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. But Mathers kind of just had Aleister Crowley skip through all of that. He ended up being like second in command of the Golden Dawn, which actually pissed a lot of people off. Yeah, so technically, Aleister Crowley was a Freemason. But don't read too much into it. He got in there only because Mathers got him in there with them. And I truly believe the only reason why Mathers got Aleister Crowley in there was because Aleister, if I'm not mistaken, had already summoned a demon at that point, which probably blew his frickin' mind. There was something to Aleister that we do not know today. At least it is not commonly taught. But yeah. He did a lot of translations of Kabbalah. And when you get into the Golden Dawn and all that stuff, I say all that to say this. Here's what I'm getting at. It's weird. It's freaking weird. Should not be a thing. If all the stories of Solomon having a magic ring and doing crazy things with it, I think there's some truth to it. I think there's some truth to Lesser Key of Solomon. By the way, don't read this unless you're fully prepared to. But no, this is based on older stuff. Not all of it is, but oh, and if you want to read any of this stuff ever, just, pray before you do so. But you can actually go through sacred texts and then you can start pulling it up. And Mathers, who we just saw a moment ago, and Crowley, like it says, are all over this book. You're talking about two guys, two Freemasons, Lesser Key of Solomon. Well, there's their names there. And there's the date, 1904. I say that to say this. It's weird. It's weird. Googler, thank you. Yeah, that is Thor's hammer. How do you say that anyway? Mjolnir? I'm not even gonna try to say that. Yeah. Oh, you guys want to see something else that's kind of cool? I'll show you this. Here's a little throwaway. I think you guys would like this. And then I need to log off because I am super sleepy. Let me see. Oh, what am I thinking? I need a Wicca. Symbol. My brain going stupid on me. I don't need this crap. Here we go. Pinnacle elements. Let's pull this up. Open image in new tab. Okay. All right. Here we go. Last thing, and then I'm getting off here. You have earth, fire, air, spirit, water. Fire, we're just going to focus on earth, fire, and spirit. The fire is passion, inspiration, intuition, creativity, and protection. It can also be things like, when you think of red, you think of like fire, obviously. You think of rage. You think of destruction. You think of, well, mostly passion. It's really passion. Then, if we flip over to earth, you have fertility, wealth, abundance, strength, and wisdom. Okay, notice they are at the very bottom. Now, spirit is the soul, the divine, the mystery. Notice that spirit is at the top. How many Wiccans do you see Let's see if I can find an example of it. Wiccans probably won't. We'll make it more broad. Which is wearing a pentagram. Okay, I know it happens because I see it happen all the time. And now they suddenly don't want to show it to me. Are you wearing it? I can't even tell. Ah, found one. Okay. This does happen. Witches will wear the pinnacle like this. This is actually a big no-no. Even though these people are not Christians, they can make their lives worse, and I'm going to show you how in a moment. You flip this upside down. You get spirit down here. Actually, it'd be easier if I'll just save it. And then I can flip it around so that this is easier. Trying to get dizzy. Now spirit's down here. Fire and earth are up here. Green can stand for abundance and wealth. Money. Red is passion. And I'm not doing this to be like a weird conspiracy theorist. Well, what does this look like to you? Now you have passion for, passion for abundance, passion for earthly things, a fire, a wanting to have as much as possible, right? Abundance, passion for abundance. You don't want to flip this upside down. That's stupid. Don't do that. If you guys have witchy friends that are like, I'm going to make the Christians angry with me by doing that, don't do that. Yeah, that's why it's satanic. Gloria, that's exactly why it's satanic. It's not satanic because it Let me see if I can find it. Can I find it? I guess I'm going to have to tell you. I wanted to find a source for you. Anton LaVey did not believe in white magic. He believed that all magic essentially was just that, magic. And that white witches were just witches and they needed to just own up to that. He didn't believe that there was a separation of dark magic and white magic. That if dark magic is just that, it's dark magic, then it's dark. A witch is a witch. So, as fate would have it, Anton LaVey would go around wearing this. And then you end up having something called the Sigil of Baphomet. That's not coincidence. He did it to piss them off, but he also the irony was lost on him. He didn't realize what he was doing. This is what he was doing. I believe he was trying to piss off the Wiccans. That's all this is. And no, you flip that upside down. You get... Look at... Okay, if you don't believe me, rules of Satanism. Watch this. Well, that's not what I was looking for. Commandments of Satanism. The tenets. That's what I meant. They've changed this. This is not the same as LaVey. This is absolutely different. Man, they can't even be consistent. Oh, that is annoying. You're not going to tell me the Ten Commandments is... Well... Oh! That's what it is. I was trying to grab the wrong source. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Do whatever you want. Which, the first commandment, I thought... was do what you want. And I can't seem to find it. Which is strange. Because they essentially believe that God, the concept of God is holding us back. And that we need to give in to our pleasures and passions. Which, by the way, don't do that. I have symptoms of bipolar disorder. If I gave in to every temptation and feeling, I would be dead yesterday. But that is what they believe. And now I can't find it. Dude, they had to have changed it. Yeah, like one of their very first rules is essentially do what you want. There are 7 fundamentals. That's so strange. That's weird, I can't find it. Oh well, I tried. Anyway, my point for talking about all this is that that is what happens when you flip earth and fire up here. Oh yeah, P fetish. If I'm not mistaken, and this was another source I lost, Anton LaVey was weird. Very weird. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that. He had a symbol. He had a little sign in his bathroom that said "Smile, you're on camera." It was believed that he would actually watch people go to the bathroom. That's alleged. I can't prove that. But going back to Sigil of Baphomet. That's all I was looking for. Yeah, earth, fire are up here. Fun fact, Anton LaVey wanted to be a part of Aleister Crowley's... actually, maybe I can find that. Can I find that? I don't like Google anymore, guys, because I'm not able to find quite a few sources. We'll stick to Oxford, though. Oh, I don't have access. It reveals that Crowley was considered as a Satanist during his lifetime. Yes, despite the fact that there is little to no satanic elements in his writing. That's debatable. And then it takes a look at the features of Crowley's esotericism that were adopted into contemporary Satanism. Yeah. And yes, Scientology. Hey, did you guys know that L. Ron Hubbard was friends with Aleister Crowley? Or was he direct friends? I think he was just influenced. I don't think they lived at the same time. The point is, Scientology is actually very occultic. Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard, Aleister Crowley, and the origins of a controversial new religion. And I know what I'm thinking. Crowley wasn't alive at the same time as L. Ron Hubbard. He was already dead. I knew that. It was Parsons I was thinking of. Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons was... he was something of a disciple of someone of Crowley. And Jack Parsons was nuts. He was also very smart. He was also a rocket scientist. A literal rocket scientist. And he's been erased from history. Look at that. He invented the first rocket engine. Have you guys heard about this guy? Isn't that interesting? But if you go and look at Jack Parsons' religion, he converted to Thelema. And yes, he was a rocket genius. And he was, look at that. Jack Parsons led a double life rocketry and pioneer by day, black magician by night who worshipped Aleister Crowley. Had a run-in with L. Ron Hubbard and called himself the Antichrist. This is true, by the way. This is 100%. This right here is why you do not hear about Jack Parsons, because you will find that he was bonkers. Bonkers. And there is a reason why Aleister was called the wickedest man in the world. Yeah, and then Parsons blew up. Literally. Had an explosion. Agape Lodge of the OTO. Never heard of that before. He looks interesting. We'll stick a pin in that. The Agape Lodge was a California-based chapter of the Ordo. Template oriented, followed by blah, 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 blah. Is an occult secret society, hermetic magical organization founded at the beginning of the 20th century. German-speaking occultists. Oh, and it was a little big in Hollywood for a little bit. That is not a surprise. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Crazy, crazy stuff. Oh, he was an advocate for the religion of Thelema. I never knew how to say that. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Babylon Working. Is this it? I don't want to click on the wrong thing. This is weird stuff. I think you just threw me down here at the bottom for no reason, guys. Oh, no, not Moonchild. I'm looking for... Okay, I guess I have to... type it in myself. Just kidding, guys. This will be my last thing. In the spring of 1946, you cannot make this up, L. Ron Hubbard and John Parsons, or Jack Parsons, performed a series of magical rituals with the aim of incarnating the Thelemic goddess Babylon in a human being. Reversal ceremony magic. I have not. Would this be an example of reversal ceremony magic? Putting a goddess into a human being? Hubbard's cooperation with Parsons, known as Babylon Working, remains one of the most controversial events in Hubbard's pre-Scientology days. This article sets out to describe the content of the magical rituals as well as their purpose. Oh, and I don't get to read it. I'm not spending $40 on that. Unless you guys want to donate. I don't have $40. But if you guys really are interested in this, please let me know. Because I will go on stream and I'll talk about this. Absolutely. Because the devil will always point to our Lord Jesus Christ. And that is the point of me talking about that. Always point to our Lord Jesus Christ. There is nothing out there. The darkness is the absence of the light. Darkness points to the light by being the absence of it. Always. There's nothing you can do. Like the further you try to get away from God, the more you point to him. But no, I have not heard of reversal ceremony magic. Well, now I gotta look it up, actually, now that you said that. Dang it. Well, this is just talking about reversing it. Reversing magic in general. Thelema. Okay. If I said that right. Alright, guys. I'm super sleepy. I gotta get off here. But yeah, you can only talk about cryptids so long before you end up just pointing at Genesis chapter 6. That's essentially what these a lot of these cryptids are. By the way, when the cryptids died, they turned into well, they didn't turn into the disembodied spirits of Nephilim are demons. That's all they are. Anyway, well, guys, I gotta go and get off here. I am super sleepy. I've been here a while. All right, take care. God bless, and I will see you in a future video. Yeah. Thank you guys for sticking around.